All right. Jem.
Yeah,
You ready to do your goddamn Jem?
I am, man. Especially after, listening to those striking workers. Obviously this strike that we're seeing right now is an absolutely massive and historic moment in U.S. history. And again, the tactics that are being used against workers, the disgusting move to pull people's health care away, that we first were hearing about earlier today and now has gone across the entire group of striking workers. This is around 50,000 workers who have walked off over 50 GM plants, a company which, by the way, has made $35 billion in profits in North America over the last 3 years. Remember, this is a company that the United States government had to come and save. This is a company that the workers actually took sacrifices to their pay and allowed for this, which is the fundamental disagreement of the strike, the two-tiered system to allow GM to be able to hire some people at lower wages than the majority of workers at the GM plants. So, these are people who have already sacrificed, and now GM is continuing to pull in more and more money, and people are asking very rightfully, why are they not, gaining any benefit from this? This is a really exciting moment, not only because it shows the power of all these workers, but it also has the potential of spilling over into other workplaces across the South. I just want to shout out the good folks at Payday Report made a great point in their coverage of this strike that, this UAW strike could also be very influential in trying to get more workers across Chattanooga and also across the South to unionize, which is absolutely important. I also just wanted to take a second to talk about another important aspect of unionization and this movement, and that is Bernie Sanders' workplace and democracy in the workplace plan, which really highlights a lot of these nasty tactics that have been used against unionization and labor rights in this country for a long time. Workers who try to unionize are often fired. There are oftentimes, corporations will pull in these really nasty organizations that come in, these consultants that come in and try to squash any unionization movement. And people are targeted and harassed in ways that they really should not be, and in ways that we've seen the weakness of the labor movement over the past few years. So importantly, and one of the most important things about this plan is it's going to destroy the provision that allows states to implement right-to-work laws, which have been absolutely decimating for unions because it prevents them from being able to pull in union dues from their entire workforce. The Bernie Sanders plan also is focusing on making sure that corporations recognize anyone who works for them as employees. Of course, this is a massive tactic by Lyft and Uber, and shout out to those workers as well who have become more and more militant about talking about how ridiculous it is that they're classified as independent contractors, which is a great way for a corporation like Lyft or Uber to underpay and not provide benefits for their employees. The Bernie Sanders plan will ban permanent replacement of striking workers, otherwise known as scabs, from being employed by corporations. And he's going to make sure to use the power of the U.S. federal government, which is one of the largest buyers in the United States of goods and services. They're going to refuse contracts to employers that do not pay a living wage, outsource jobs, union bust, or do not have adequate benefits. And it's going to also, Bernie Sanders has pledged to fulfill a commitment to at-will firing.
To end at-will firing.
Yeah, to end at-will firing. And crucially, too, to also try to introduce sectoral bargaining practices. So instead of people being organized in their own shop, being able to have industry standards that say, like, if you work in this kind of industry, this is the minimum wage that people will be paid in this industry. That pushes wages up for everybody. And crucially, and I just want to hit Joe Biden for his really disingenuous point to Bernie Sanders.
Please.
The important part of this plan is the fair transition for Medicare for all, which says that for all the money that these corporations are going to save from not having to pay into healthcare for their employees, that money is going to go to wage increases and additional benefits for workers under Medicare for all. So not only will workers under Medicare for all no longer have the employers have the ability to do what they've just done in the UAW plant, which is take away people's healthcare to use it as a stick to punish workers, they're actually going to see the benefits from the saved money for the employers go into their pockets. And look, this is a great thing if it can be implemented, and it's going to be a huge boost to the labor movement. But this is why the Bernie Sanders strategy is so much more important than just having a plan. It's understanding that we're building grassroots movements and we're building worker power across the board. We don't want the power, working class power, to be concentrated in Washington. We want to be concentrated in people's everyday lives. So Bernie Sanders' plan is to pull back the really nasty apparatus that has been put in place over the past 30 years of anti-union politics in DC, while also empowering workers to be able to control their own destiny and encourage them in their own militant struggles. This is the strategy. You don't have to pick between reform or revolution. You don't have to pick between electoral politics and class politics. This is a plan, this is a movement that is building class consciousness, increasing worker power, and promoting the class struggle. This is how we're going to win. We're going to take advantage of opportunities to roll back apparatuses that are used by the state to keep us weak, and we're going to organize and increase our working class power and increase class militancy. We don't know what the blueprint for transitioning to socialism is going to be, but we do know that it's going to need to be organized with a massive class struggle, and it's going to need to be empowering as many people as possible. And that's why this dual strategy of winning elections, winning power, and also empowering working class people is the way that we're going to beat back the people who have been holding us down for so long.
You know, if I'm the WFP political director right now, I'm thinking, that sounds interesting, but what about a slight tweak on the Volcker rule?
Yeah, exactly.
Go to Joe 30330 and help me.
I think that the Maurice is going to give us some sound drops too when we get to that later.
Okay, well, bless me, Father, if I have sinned.
You just watched a Michael Brooks show video. Subscribe to get them all. Why wouldn't you? Don't be foolish. Click subscribe below and become a patron as well. Patreon.com/TMBS. Thanks, everybody.